Hey everybody, Jack Barnwell here. A very exciting adventure for you guys today. Earlier this morning, I had a rare and unique opportunity to tour through the Gifford Arboretum, which is south of Miami on the University of Miami campus, with Ken Feeley, who's the director of the Arboretum and a complete wizard when it comes to tropical trees and plants. It was an unbelievable, eye-opening experience. It was awesome. And I learned a tremendous amount, and now we're gonna take a little time to dive in so I can share everything that I learned from Ken with you guys through video and take you along on this amazing journey. This is over 3 acres, over 500 species of amazing trees and plants, open to the public here on campus. Let's dive in. Okay, so our adventure this morning with Ken started with this amazing specimen tree. This Lignum vitae is a Lignum vitae is a really special tree. It's a native tree and almost gone, almost vanished, because this incredible tree was heavily harvested because it's one of the densest, hardest woods in the world. In fact, if you cut a chunk of it off, throw it in the water, it will sink. And it was used, believe it or not, Ken was saying they used to make ball bearings out of it and all kinds of things because it's so hard and so dense and so resistant to rot and things like that. But ball bearings, believe it or not, because it's hard and oily, so really hard and would stay lubricated. It does flower. It's flowering even right now. It's a beautiful little blue flower. It's really pretty. And architecturally, just a gorgeous tree. So Ken and his team and many in the horticultural industry are trying to encourage people to learn about this tree and use it more often here in South Florida, because it's a really great native tree that needs to be planted more prolifically. As we go a little bit further into the Arboretum here, you can see there's just trees everywhere, and all kinds of weird, funky, different trees. This big beauty right here next to me is a mahogany tree. Everybody knows mahogany wood and everything like that, but few know that they can become these just big, beautiful trees. And down here in the Miami area, they're planted a lot as street trees. They're pretty common shade tree, and but really a great tree, tough tree, can handle a lot of storms and stuff like that, and just create a really beautiful canopy of shade. They've got a lot of different species from all over the world. This really beautiful giant Baobab tree from Madagascar is a stunner. And the cool thing about it is they've, harvested and planted trees from all over the world that will survive in this climate, and put them all in this relatively small arboretum so that the students here at the university and the general public can come and learn about all these great plants. And all of their plants have such great signage on them. So you can bring your smartphone with you, scan the QR code, and learn a tremendous amount about these plants, about the trees, about all their uses and stuff like that, for medicinal uses, whether they're edible or not, whether they're using them for perfumes. There's all kinds of wild and different uses going on here. This one, many of you guys recognize, or probably recognize, as the little plant that is at the grocery store around Christmas time. This is a poinsettia and is a wild Euphorbia. So this is in the Euphorbia family. That this species is wildly diverse. So the Euphorbia family has these guys with the leaves that change colors, and the red ones especially are really popular at Christmas time, but they will grow into a full-on tree or shrub-like tree down here. And Ken was telling us earlier that species, the Euphorbiae, are so incredibly diverse that they also include this crazy, weird chenille plant here This funky wild plant is also in that same Poinsettia family, as well as this dynamite tree. This tree, also known as the tree that wants to kill you, apparently. This lethal wild tree with spiny spikes all over it. These are really, really sharp. And not only is it very, very sharp, so you're not going to want to be a tree hugger around this thing, but the sap is poisonous. The thorns, if you do get cut from it, you're going to get like a little rash, an infection. I mean, everything about this tree is literally out to kill you. It's very protective of itself there, for sure. And just walking amongst all these trees, you get such an incredible appreciation of the wild diversity that there is in all these plants. Some of them have these big, beautiful, green, glossy leaves, and others have no leaves at all right now. And as Ken was describing to us earlier, that some of these trees are what's called drought deciduous. So they, unlike our trees up north that lose their leaves in the winter time because of the cold, these take their signals from moisture. So some of these trees that don't have any leaves on them certainly are not dead. They just have lost all their leaves because they are trying to conserve moisture. So where they're from natively, they have a similar wet season, dry season. They shed all their leaves in the dry season to conserve moisture, conserve water, and then when the rains come in the summertime and the Miami area here is really, really wet tropical rainforest environment, they leaf out like crazy, get all kinds of different photosynthesis going, and they're growing like crazy and go through this annual cycle like that. So over here, there's this whole really, really great collection of figs. A lot of different figs over here. This one's called the clown fig. And one of the most fascinating things that we learned from Ken earlier today about all figs is that figs in their native environment, in the natural world, are all pollinated by wasps. And these fig wasps, the figs and the wasps have this symbiotic relationship that's really, really unique to just figs. So a fig itself that we all know and love and eat has a tiny, tiny little hole in one end of it. And all the flowers and everything are inside that fruit. So the flowers are inside the fruit instead of the flowers being outside and the bees pollinating the flower and then it turning into a fruit. The flowers are inside this capsule with a tiny little hole, and a female wasp goes in there to get to the flowers, right? But on the way in, the hole is so small that it rips her wings off. So on her way in, through that little hole, she's getting her wings ripped off, and she's pregnant. So she's in there with no wings. She lays all of her eggs in there. Then it gets crazier. She dies, okay, she becomes fertilizer for the fig or whatever. She dies, but then her babies are born. The males are born first. This is getting a little twisted, but they impregnate their sisters, the females, while they're still like unborn. And then they try to escape, because, yeah, you probably would want to, right? They try to escape and they burrow holes out, but they don't quite make it out, and then they die. And then when the females are born, they're born pregnant, and they have the energy to go out the holes that the males have created, but bust free, get out of the fig, and then go on and do the same thing and fly away and everything to another tree and carry that pollen from inside that fig to another tree, go inside, lose their wings, and then have the babies that their brothers impregnated them with before they were even born. Pretty twisted up, but wildly fascinating. And that's making me really hungry to go and have a yummy fig right about now. But anyway, really cool stuff going on here in this arboretum, and that's the kind of stuff you can learn in an arboretum like this. It's just about incredible trees and species that are worth preserving, worth learning about, worth knowing about, that are just so cool. And so, as you can see, there's students from the university all over the place throughout the arboretum here, studying, learning about all these really cool plants, and experiencing this space, because that's what it's really all about. They take classes and stuff out here all the time, and that's a really important part of having these kinds of places and spaces on a campus like this. This tree right here is really stunner. This guy is from eastern Brazil, Bolivia, and Peru. So this pink floss silk tree, back in the Mayan, when the Mayan civilization was really big and prolific, this tree was a really important tree. And it's in the Amazon and in the rainforest down there. It is a full-on upper canopy tree. It gets huge tree. Will grow all the way up through the upper canopy and connect all the way down to the ground. So the Mayan people believed that it was a really sacred tree, and that it connected heaven to earth to the underworld. And that these eyes, which were just branches, but that these eyes, which are just knots, but they look like the eyes of their ancestors or something, these eyes on the tree, especially on really big trees, there'd be eyes all around the tree, are their ancestors looking out and looking after their people. Really cool tree. And this one, so fascinating in that it has all these thorns all over it as well. But this guy, the reason it adapted these thorns was that a long time ago, about 15 to 20,000 years ago, where these trees were growing in the Amazon rainforest and throughout that whole region, there were these giant ground sloths and elephant-like creatures. They aren't there anymore. But there were these elephant-like creatures that used to knock these trees down, rub into them, knock them down, and chew on the wood to get all the moisture out of them, because these big bulbous growths like this are full of moisture. So a tree like this, during dry season, during the drought, would be full of water. And those elephant-like creatures learned this over thousands and thousands of years. So here we are about 15,000 years later, and the tree still has not evolved to change that. It still has these spikes and spines on it to protect itself from an animal that no longer exists, that's no longer a threat. And what Ken was saying is that is just one of the many things they're able to learn and talk about and demonstrate here, is that plants and trees are used to adapting to their environment, and they're amazingly good at it. But 15,000 years is a blink of an eye in the evolutionary scale of the world. But with climate change and human influence on our environment, plants are not able to adapt as quickly. So it just is one more example of why we need to be conscious of how amazing these plants are, how amazing trees are around us all over the world, and we need to be all on the same team at conserving them and learning a lot more about them. And institutions like this and many others are really important spaces and places for us to educate the next generation of people to continue to conserve and learn about all these amazing plants and trees that one day, one way or another, are gonna save the world. So we think this is a really special place. It's open to the public. If you find yourself in the Miami area at all, highly encourage you to come check it out. It's on the University of Miami campus, the Gifford Arboretum. Please do so. Thank you guys all so much for joining along in this fun little video to show you guys this really cool place and teach you some of the amazing, fascinating things that I got a chance to learn earlier today with Ken. And we'll see you guys all in the next video. Cheers.